He's a New York Times bestselling author, a world-class storyteller, and one of the most trusted voices in modern finance. His books, The Psychology of Money, Same as Ever, and the newly released The Art of Spending Money, have sold over 9 million copies and have been translated into more than 60 languages. He's a two-time winner of the Best in Business Award, a New York Times Sydney Award honoree, and was named one of MarketWatch's 50 most influential people in markets. He's also a partner at the Collaborative Fund and serves on the board of Markel. But here's what makes Morgan Housel really special. He has a rare gift for making complex ideas feel simple and unforgettable. His writing lives at the intersection of money, behavior, and what it means to live a meaningful life. We're beyond thrilled to welcome Morgan to Worst Meeting Ever. And trust us, even his bad meetings are full of wisdom. Morgan, thanks so much for joining us today on Worst Meeting Ever. So excited to have you as a guest today. So tell us, what is it like to be a New York Times bestselling author of not one, not two, but hopefully just about to be 3 books?
What's weird, and this really fits into the idea of Worst Meeting Ever. I've been a one-man band for 98% of my career. It is just me and the keyboard and some random thoughts going through my head, and my golden retriever pops in once in a while, and that's about it here. And so I guess when you ask what does it feel like, I appreciate the solitude. I think it is very good for creativity. I would be lying if I said, and this, we don't need to turn this into a sob fest, but I'd be lying if I said I don't get lonely from time to time. Now, if you gave me a choice, I can either be a one-man band, a little lonely from time to time, or I can work in a gigantic corporation in a cubicle with 55,000 other people. 100 times out of 100, I'm going to do what I'm doing right now. I love it. Yep. And so I feel like I toggle between that. I could not do the writing I do full stop if I were in a corporate office in a cubicle going to meetings all day. Yep. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. And so it's a unique role in that sense.
So most of the people that I talk to on the show, like I asked, like, how many meetings would you say you're in during a typical week? I'm going to change the question for you to say, how many meetings would you say you're in a typical year?
Yeah, it's probably on the lines of fewer than 10. That's
fewer than 10.
Right.
Okay, yeah. And then give us a sense of what's the mix here? Is this with the publisher? Is this with an editor? Is this what does it look like?
Yeah, it's a mix between publishers, editors. I'm on the board of directors of Markel, which is a public company. So we're going to add 4 board meetings a year to that, plus some other stuff that happens online. And but it's pretty few in my normal week. Very few, if anything.
Okay.
Most of my publishers are very good at working over text and email. And the classic meme of meetings, that could have been an email. I think they are very good at that, including text. I mean, there's one layer deeper where this didn't even need to be an email. You could have shot me a text that I could have responded to with an emoji. That's the ultimate. That's how I want to operate. And so it's very few and far between. And I get to spend 99% of my time wandering around my neighborhood and my house, thinking about what I'm going to write next.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible gift. I would say all of the corporate employees that you were talking about earlier are definitely extremely envious hearing about that kind of schedule and approach. But it simply requires the ability to do the kind of creative output that you do to be able to have that kind of gig. And that's pretty awesome. So, okay, we have a more limited repertoire than most people. Most people, it takes them like a split second to identify their worst meeting ever. But hit us in your more limited repertoire. What is your worst meeting ever?
Well, I mean, there are so few of them, but that it's hard to point down one specific one. But I will tell you a story, so I don't punt on your question that I think is important. Because I've been to so few meetings throughout my career, I think I am not cursed with the preconceived notions that everyone else has. And I think for a lot of very well-meaning, smart, intelligent employees, if you've been through 47,000 pointless meetings throughout your career that you didn't need to be, you build up a form of Stockholm syndrome, and you just assume that that is normal and natural, or you even enjoy it. And so since I think I don't have that, I think when I am very occasionally stuck into these meetings, I am much more likely, even though I consider myself a patient, empathetic person, to within 5 minutes be like, what in the world is the point of all of this? I don't understand why anyone is doing this right now. I can't understand why we're here, and everyone else thinks it's a perfectly fine thing to do. I think there is a lot of that in life and in corporate America, that when inefficiency has has momentum, it just keeps on going, and nobody questions it. It just keeps going forever, and nobody is afraid to raise their hand and say, "Can we just stop doing this? I don't think we should do this whatsoever." And so I think if you've not been part of it and then you see it, you have a much clearer lens to look through to spot the inefficiency, and I've seen that very often.
Well, and I think a lot of people might sit here and go, well, Morgan, I mean, that's a power dynamic issue. Like if I was a New York Times bestselling author, I could say that in a meeting too. But on the other hand, there are many CEOs who are running companies who are in those meetings and are in the same Stockholm syndrome and are never like raising that question. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think they don't ask the questions that you're asking when they get into bad meetings?
You see, the person who is lower on the totem pole has to, and they feel like they can't for political reasons can't raise their hand and do it.
Right.
I'll give you a story that I heard about former President Barack Obama. That particularly in his first term, he was obviously, as any president would be, so busy, so pressed for time that if he were sitting in a meeting in the Oval Office or the Situation Room and he thought you were wasting his time, he would just get up and walk out. Wouldn't say anything to you. He would just get up and walk out. And there's part of me is like, that's how it should work. If you're the boss, if you're the CEO, whatnot, you have to set the tone for everybody else. And as the manager, the CEO, the president, whoever it might be, to the extent that you can set that tone and say, we value everybody's time, let's do it. I'll give you one analogy here for me as a writer. I think one of the most important skills as a writer is that I respect your time. You, the reader, I respect your time, and I'm not going to sit here and ramble and give you 15 chapters of fluff because I respect your time. And I think if you as a boss, a manager, a CEO have that same mentality for the meetings that you allow to take place in the organization, all the better. I'll tell you one that I think...
I've heard you say that when you write, you think of every word costing you $100, and imagine if you thought the same way about every minute of a meeting.
Yes, and if you have a meeting of 10 highly paid people, every minute does literally cost you $100 of that meeting, or more, whatever it might be. And so, I think if you think about it in those terms, it makes a lot of sense. I read this recently that in the early days of SpaceX, that Elon Musk had this idea. He said, I forget the exact timeline, but he said in 10 years, SpaceX will earn $10 million per day in revenue. And every day that you waste between now and then cost $10 million. So it was this tiny little startup. And he was like, don't think what this costs today. As a startup, maybe their burn rate was 10,000 a day, whatever it is. But he's like, no, this is going to cost us 10 million in the future. And I want you to think like that.
You're delaying us getting to that point in time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that kind of mentality is very intelligent.
I love that. And now when I'm thinking to your Barack Obama story, I'm sitting there going, now we know why the president has a study next to the Oval Office. It's like, why do you need an office next to your office? So that you have a place to go when you stand up and walk out of the meeting.
Just get up and walk out. Don't say anything to anybody. Right. Exactly.
I love it. Okay. So let's flip the coin. Let's talk about the best meeting that you've ever been in.
So this is, and for a brief period of time, I was an employee of the Motley Fool. I was a contractor there for many years where I worked by myself. But for a short period of time, I actually worked in the office. And that's why I say 98% of my career is a one-man band. So for a short term time, I was there. And I was fortunate enough to get to interview someone for a different position. Okay. Now, when they interviewed for the position, probably 8 people at the Motley Fool would interview him. I was, number 6 on that line. Yep. And I could tell this person had been put through the interview ringer of sitting, on the other side of a desk of a manager who was just batting questions back and forth to them and stressing them out. And I don't know where I got this idea. I think I just had empathy for the stress that this young man was clearly under. And so it was my time to interview him. Without much thought, I said, hey, do you want to go for a walk around the neighborhood? Do you just want to go for a walk around the block? We don't need to sit here with me sitting across from you. Let's just go walk. And I felt like instantly you could see the stress melt away. And we had an amazing conversation. And it was an interview. It was a job interview, but it also wasn't. It was just 2 guys shooting the breeze, talking about life, talking about careers. And I guarantee you, there's a little bit of ego saying this, but I guarantee you I got way more information, real information, than the people who are just, sitting us out and just interrogating him. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of that. Like the structure of the meeting is really important. I know Steve Jobs was very big on that. Whenever a very important meeting needed to take place at Apple, he would say, let's go for a walk. Let's do that. And I think I remember reading some research about this, that if we're sitting across the table and I'm looking you in the eye, you're looking me in the eye, one of us is going to maybe has a higher propensity to feel intimidated stressed, like this is a battle. Whereas if we're going for a walk and we're both looking ahead, we're actually not making eye contact. It's easier for us to kind of communicate in a more real manner that reflects who we actually are.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I love that, and I love doing walking meetings. I would say my only challenge is when we have something to review, and when we have something to review, it needs to be up on the screen. That's the one thing that keeps me away from making every meeting a walking meeting, because I just love walking around with people and just getting to know them as human beings.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly powerful. But I want, so that's a great one. That's a great story. But I have to ask, like, okay, you've written these two amazing books, and so there's a meeting somewhere where you met with your publisher and they decided to greenlight that you were, and make the agreement, or you made the agreement with them that you were going to write this new book, The Art of Spending Money. Like, take us into that decision to write this book.
Oh, there's a long backstory between that, because it's very difficult for someone who's been writing for a long time to get a book deal with a big publisher. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Right.
And so I had not written Psychology of Money yet when I signed a deal with a publisher for my future books. And then Psychology of Money came out and sold a few copies, and then kind of the situation changed after I'd signed this. And so it was a process of going back to the publisher and kind of figuring out new ideas and a new way to do it and a new structure in the terms of doing it to get it to all work. And I think what's interesting is so the publishers are just in the market of looking for authors who know how to write and know how to get stuff done. And early on, like for my first books, it was, please submit a 50-page proposal of everything that this book is going to see. We need 10 sample chapters and a marketing plan and whatnot. And later on, for later books, it's like, hey, do you have a sentence on what this new book will be about? So it was different from there. But it's actually that can be more difficult for the author, because it's actually a very good forcing function for the publisher to make you write a 50-page proposal, because then you as an author have to be like, man, have I really thought this through? Am I really committing myself to doing this yet? Yeah. Whereas in the latter, if you're fortunate enough as an author to get there, then they'll kind of greenlight, just a raw idea that you have. Then when you actually sit down to write it, sometimes there's a feeling of like, oh, this is going to be a lift that I haven't really thought this through yet. Yeah. And that was true for The Art of Spending Money. I knew it was a great title. I knew I wanted to write it, and that was it. That was really it. And when I sat down to write it, it was much more of a lift than it otherwise would have been. Yeah.
Wow. Beginning to end, how long did it take you to write that book?
This is roughly how it works. It's usually like a year of very casual noodling where I am just jotting down ideas. I'm going for a walk and I'm like, oh, that chapter idea is pretty cool, and I could use this story for it. Let's make a note of that. I do that for a year, very informally. And then it's about 3 months of part-time writing and 3 months of full-time writing. And the last 2 weeks of full-time writing, the world does not exist outside of my keyboard.
Makes total sense. That's awesome. So the book, talk to me about how you thought about the book working together with the other two that you wrote, particularly the first one, The Psychology of Money, because it's so interesting that you write these two books. They're kind of on related topics, but through a very, very different lens. And, did you feel any pressure to stay consistent with yourself in the past? Or did it feel like you just had carte blanche to kind of go in new directions with The Art of Spending Money?
I think it's very much the former. I think if there's anything that I've done well as a writer over the years that I'm proud of, I should say, it's that I've never felt any pressure to box myself into anything of needing to stay perfectly consistent. I want to admit that I have learned over the years, and therefore some of my feelings will evolve and whatnot, but also being very independent of I think there's twice in The Art of Spending Money where I use a quote that I used in The Psychology of Money. And one of the editors said, hey, you already used this in your first book. And I would say, yeah, but it's a really good quote, and I'd like to use it. Like, I don't care if I used it in the first one. I'm going to use it in the second one too. So just being very independent about
Love it.
My only goal here is to write what I think is the best book on this topic that I can do. And I really don't feel beholden or even pressured by the opinions and the influences of other people. I think I've gotten to come to terms over the years that You cannot please everybody.
Yeah.
And no matter what you write, no matter how proud I might be of it, there's going to be some people who disagree with it. And that's perfectly fine. That's almost the point of this. The point of this is there is no one right answer. And because of that, this is always a subjective matter that some people might disagree with. And the only way to deal with that psychologically as a writer is just to say, I'm going to write what I like. And I like this story. I like these points. I understand other people won't, because this is subjective, and that's great. Maybe you have to figure it out for yourself, and that's the best anybody can do.
Feels like a formula that's worked for you so far. Feels like it's a formula that's working really, really great for the art of spending money. Look forward to everybody getting a chance to check out this book. Where can people find it? Amazon? Anybody? Any place else that you point out for people?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, those are the big ones, but pretty much anywhere books are sold right now.
Pretty much anywhere books are sold, The Art of Spending Money. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Great to have you on.
Worst Meeting Ever is brought to you by Contio. What if AI could kill your broken meetings? Find out how at Contio.ai.